Hey guys, welcome to Mr. Smith's Kitchen. I'm Brian, Mr. Smith. This is my kitchen, at least for maybe this week, maybe next week, but I doubt it. We're already starting to move stuff. If you're new to my channel, welcome. Glad you found me. I hope you get something out of this video, and check out some of my other videos. If you're returning, I'm glad you came back. As always, don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below, because that would be really cool if you joined our community. Not necessary, but it would be really cool. And the notification bell if you want to know when my videos come out. That way, I'm always appreciative when you allow me into your homes, or your phone, or your car, or wherever it is you watch me at. But that way, you know when they come out. If you are new, Tuesdays, I like to sit around and just talk about whatever. Wednesdays, we do try to do some cooking today. Thursdays, we try to do some baking. We also do some canning and some other things. I keep fish. We dwell on those not as often as I'd like, but that's just because there's not really a whole lot going on in the fish keeping realm other than keeping the ones I have. But that being said, we do appreciate thumbs up, thumbs down, not necessary. Comments are always welcome. All I ask is you keep them respectful. Always want your opinion, and thoughts and things like that. But we are a diverse community of all age groups and backgrounds, so we try to be respectful. That holds true. Now, little housekeeping before we get started with tonight's dinner. Hopefully Mr. Smith's Kitchen on Facebook will be fired up here in the next week, maybe two. I know I said in an earlier video it'd be about a week, but a lot going on. In case you don't know, we're moving and we're packing and starting to move stuff as of today. So we're doing another slow cooker meal, much like last week. That way I got time while this is cooking to pack and stuff like that, but it'll be a good one. We are doing the tomorrow. We are doing the pumpkin cheesecake. I've already got that filmed, so we don't have to worry about that. I just got to edit it and get it on there tomorrow. Next week, I don't know if we're going to do a whole lot of cooking or baking, because I'm hoping the carpet gets laid in the new place next week. We're having some struggles with that, with everybody being sick in town. But if not, we're going to at least take a look at the new house, check it out, see what's going on. And then the next few videos after that will probably just be before and afters, how we got it set up and things like that. And that'll probably be the next week or so, And then after that, hopefully we'll get back into cooking, baking, sitting around the table and, having chit chats, along with a bunch of other stuff. We've got a massive garage that, once we get it set up, with your help, of course, we'll be able to do some projects out there. But that being said, let's focus on the now. Tonight we're going to do cube steak, and it's not hard. Some moving parts though. I've never done this cube steak recipe before, so once again, new to me, new to you. We're going to do it together. We are going to succeed or fail together. That's what we're about here, right? You just get to watch me do it, and maybe I'm doing something wrong, something different, or you do something different. Comments down below. But anyhow, cube steak. Let's go over some ingredients list. We're gonna break this into two parts. We're gonna break it into the three basic things we need, and then this gets coated with a mix, and then we're going to and once we get past that step, we'll talk about the gravy. All right, so first thing we're going to need is, let me turn the camera down just a little bit so that way I don't have to spill this stuff all over the place as I show you. But first thing we're going to need, this recipe, I basically tripled it, parts of it, but I'm going to tell you what you're going to need just because it's based on 4 cube steaks, and as you can see here, I've got like 12. So you're going to need at least 4 cube steaks. Now with your cube steaks, if they don't come super thin like these do, all right, you're going to want to take a meat tenderizer or something of that effect, and you're going to want to bang them down to about a quarter to a half inch, and that just gives it a little more, tenderizing. This original recipe also can be done in just a cast iron skillet, but I'm going to do it in a slow cooker. It does have a slow cooker option, so that's the option I'm going to give you. And if I remember correctly, I will tell you what the steps are involved in doing it on a non-slow cooker night. The next thing you will need is 3 tablespoons of flour. Once again, I've got 9 tablespoons of flour because I had to triple the recipe. And you will need 2 tablespoons of olive oil. All right, so we got, and there's 2 tablespoons in there because we're going to use this to cook the meat in. And you start out with 2 tablespoons. If you need more, you add more as you go, depending on the amount of meat you're cooking and how dry your pan gets. So that's what we need first. Tools you'll need: a good frying pan, a slow cooker or a crock pot, right there. Sorry, that's pretty much all that's left of my kitchen right there, other than a few pots and a couple other pots and pans. But that's pretty much it. So to make your mix, you will need, sorry I keep looking down, but I got it written down, casualties of making it for the first time with you. Well, I won't say casualty, but that's just kind of the way it goes. You will need 1 teaspoon of brown sugar, a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. You will need a 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder and a 1/2 teaspoon of onion powder, along with your flour. And that's pretty much your meat seasoning. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get started with seasoning our meat with that. And then I'll show you how to do that. So I'm going to get you down to the counter, and then after we do this, sorry, my mind's like in 5 different places because I have spent the morning moving stuff over to the garage already. And then as soon as we get done, once we get this in the slow cooker, I'm going to go back to moving stuff in the garage until dinner's ready. This meal does take anywhere from 4 hours to 8 hours, depending on how you set your crock pot up. But we'll get to that here in a second. All right, so we're going to need a bowl. So I'm going to mix our stuff in. Now, the recipe, and I don't understand the thought process behind this, so I'm going to change it up a little bit as far as the way it goes, because it's got you mixing up your dry ingredients right here, and this is going to be what you put on top of your cube steaks, and then it has you put in the flour on top of that. And I don't quite understand why. It doesn't explain why, and it doesn't make any sense to me. So I am going to deviate a little bit from the directions, and I'm going to put my flour in there also. That makes the most sense to me, because we're not going to dip the steaks in and coat it. We're literally just going to rub this on our steaks. So we got that in there, and then we're going to take a fork and give this a good mix. Now we're only going to cook these steaks 2 at a time, because that's pretty much what will all fit in the pan. But we're going to go ahead and get put the mix on it. We'll do them all now. That way they've got time to sit and relax, and this mix is like doing chicken. When you bread chicken, you dip it in the egg yolk, then you mix it in your flour mix, your seasoning mix, and then you just let it sit for about 10 minutes or so, and it gives it time for that coating to stick a little and absorb. So let me move my ingredients list there, and we're going to get a baking sheet. We're going to get a rack out, just like so. And we're going to bring our meat over here, and I'm going to, in this case, I picked up a package of gloves, tired of getting my hands dirty and washing them 1,000 times, or rinsing them off 1,000 times because I get stuff all over them. So we're just going to take these. I'm just going to go ahead and set them on the rack. We're going to sprinkle this on, give it a good rub in, like such. Flip it over, rub the other side in. You know, I've put a lot on it. You know, because ultimately this is going to we're gonna fry these up like I said, but then we're gonna put it in the crock pot and let it do its thing for hours. So man, it doesn't have to be, you know, heavily coated. It just has to be coated. You know, is what we're looking for. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these done. And then once I get these done, I'll bring it back and we will go ahead and move on to the next step. All right, I will see you here in just 1 second. All right, so we got all these coated with our mix. So the next thing we got to do, sorry, scared them guys. They don't think they knew I was getting ready to film again because I didn't say anything. So the next thing we're going to do is take these, and like I said, just 2 at a time, because some of them are kind of big. And we're going to put them in the skillet. And we're going to let them fry for about, sorry, let's kind of start that over. Before you put them in the skillet, put about 2 tablespoons of oil in here. Let the oil heat up until it's lightly smoking and rippling. You know, you can see it dancing. Then put a couple in here at a time, okay? Now, if you need to, the reason, because if you look, I still have more oil in my thing because I'm doing so many of them. Chances are good I'm going to dry this skillet out before I get all 12 of these done. So, what? I'm sorry, I'm being loud. I got told I was being loud. So, but we're going to let this fry about 1.5 minutes on each side. So after my minute and a half's up and I've got a nice crispiness to them, I'm going to flip them over. Alright, and then once they're done cooking, I'm going to set them on a plate. Remember, we don't have to cook them all the way through. They're going in a crock pot, and I don't have to keep them hot because they're going in a crock pot. We'll grab our tongs here and give them a look-see. Yep, what you're looking to do is get them browned on each side. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and do these up, and when I come back, we'll take a look at them and look at the end result and move on to making some gravy. Alright? Alright, so we got our, all our cube steaks are nice and seared. Got that mix on them with the brown sugar, and it smells delightful. I wish you guys were here to smell it. So the next thing we're going to do, we've got all these nice fun bits in the bottom of it, is we're going to take our butter. We got 3 tablespoons of butter, okay, and we're going to melt this in the pan. All right, and so far all these steps apply whether you're cooking this in a slow cooker or we're doing it in a skillet. And we're going to let that butter melt. Get that down in there. Yeah, don't worry about cleaning off your pan or anything like that. Yeah, you want all that in the bottom of it, because the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do our onions up. All right, we got butter going. Now, the next ingredient is onion. All right, and we just thin sliced it up. Just into little thin slices. And we're going to put this in here, and we're going to let these saute down. It's, and here is like an option. How soft do you want these? How brown do you want them? But right now these onions are gonna, cook down in this nice little bit of stuff stuck to the bottom of the pan, and the butter's collecting that. All that flavor is going to go into these onions. And then we're just going to intensify it when we put the gravy on top of it. We're going to make gravy with it. And it's an interesting gravy. It's got like the best of all worlds. So we're gonna let these cook down. The ingredient or the directions on this recipe say 20-25 minutes, or until they're soft and as brown as you like them to be. So I'm gonna let these go for about 10-15 minutes and see how they go. At least 10 to 15 minutes. I want them really soft and flavorful and almost translucent, like a good sauteed onion. So when we return, we'll go ahead and move on to the next step. But right now, so far we've coated our meat. We've seared it, not cooked it all the way through, but seared it. That meat's still raw in the middle. And now we put our butter and onions in the pan, and we're gonna let those saute. All right, see you here in just a second. Okay, so we got our onions are sauteed. Let me show you them since we're at a distance. But here's our nice golden onions. You can't really beat that. I think they look amazing, tender and delicious. So the next thing we got to do is make our sauce. I'm gonna turn I think I'm about out of propane on my burner here, so I'm turn it up a little bit. So to make the sauce, it's really easy. First thing we're gonna do is in the fridge, I have a 1/4 cup of water. Okay, let me move the crock pot down here real quick, because we're gonna need that in just one brief second. And with this 1/4 cup of water, we're gonna take a fork, and we're going to take 3 tablespoons of tablespoons of cornstarch. We're going to add that 1/4 cup of water to it. We're going to mix it up real good. We want it all broke up. And like I don't know if you've heard me say before, if you watch any of my other videos where I use cornstarch is a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing because it'll thicken up your gravy. It turns most broths into gravy. But it's a pain in the butt to stir up. But you need to be cold water. Make sure it's cold water. You know, like from the fridge, cold. Not ice cold. I mean, don't put an ice cube in it or anything like that. But you want it cold. If you don't, it won't dissolve. Cornstarch doesn't do well in warm or hot water. But it loves some cold water, like a cold shower. You know, it must be a naughty powder, and it needs cold water to calm it down. So we got that taken care of. Step 1 in gravy making. The next thing we're going to do, we're leaving the onions in the pan. 1 cup of beef broth. Okay, and here's where the recipe, at least in my mind, got a little weird. Because it calls for 1 cup of beef broth, but then it also calls for a beef bouillon cube or a teaspoon of better than bouillon, which is what I use. If you don't know what better than bouillon is, it's just basically a really cooked down beef stock. You know, it's all it is. So we're gonna put that in. Then we're gonna add, and I put my 1 teaspoon of better than bouillon in with my beef broth. So it literally has almost 2 full teaspoons of better than bouillon to 1 cup of water in it. Then we're going to do a cup of chicken broth. All right. That goes in next. And we're going to mix that up. I'm going to try to stir in between everything. Yep. All right. And then we're going to take 1 second to change out the propane cylinder in this, because it's dead. So, and we need a live propane cylinder. Now, this is keeping it real on a channel. Most people would have paused or edited this out. I'm not. I mean, why would I? This would happen in your house, right? So why wouldn't it happen in my house? I don't want to start out with a fresh tank every single time, because then I got a bunch of half-full tanks sitting around, so that's no good. So we'll got the fresh tank in there, got us relit, we're ready to rock. All right, so we've got our cup of beef broth along with our teaspoon of better than bouillon. If you don't use better than bouillon, just get a beef bouillon cube. They sell them everywhere. We put our cup of chicken stock in there. The next thing we're going to need is 1.5 teaspoons of Worcestershire sauce. You know, or in my ingredients list, W sauce, because it's a lot of writing. We're going to need a 1/2 teaspoon. Yep, 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder, which is currently a problem with working in humidity. All right, got that. 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder. Bam, in there. No time flat. a 1/4 teaspoon of onion powder. Oh, I'm sorry, it is a 1/2 teaspoon. I'm sorry, 1 teaspoon of onion powder. I was looking at the wrong list. 1 teaspoon of onion powder and 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder. Right? And we're going to give this a good stir. Now, all that stuff that was stuck to the bottom of this pan, yeah, I want to say it's called font, but that's not right. But it's actually just a world of flavor, right? So we're gonna take a rubber spatula or a wooden spatula. You wouldn't want to use metal, even if you're using a non-stick pan. And we're just gonna give it a good rub, because what all this liquid is doing is it's lifting all that flavor off the bottom of the pan. But you don't want to scrape up your pan in the process. Yeah, in my opinion. Now, I know there's people out there that use cast iron, that use metal on it, and I do on occasion, But when it comes to stuff like this, I try not to use metal because I don't want to tear up my my carbon-based surface on my cast iron. All right, we got that good mixed. We got all those bits off of there, which is what we wanted, hands down. And what they'll do is, as this cooks in the crock pot, those bits will start to, relax, break up, and become part of the sauce, or the gravy in this case. All right, so we got that all done. Now, here's where, if you're not using a crock pot, you would go from here. Okay, this is where it starts to differ. Since I'm using a crock pot, or if I wasn't using a crock pot, I would go ahead and dump my cornstarch in here, stir it up, and let it thicken into a gravy, right? I'd keep stirring until it thickened into a gravy. Then I would put my cube steaks in amongst the gravy mix and the onions, and I would put the lid on it and let it cook for about another 10 minutes. But here's where the crock pot version comes into play. I'm going to go ahead and turn this off, take the gas off. See, I almost had enough in that can to do the entire meal. So it wasn't a waste. Waste not, want not. Although I don't quite understand the saying behind that, because, if you don't want it, then of course you're going to waste it. But if you could explain that to me, leave me a comment. Let me know, because that would be awesome. I would love to know. All right, so now we're going to bring our crock pot back up here. Normally I'd be better organized, but like I said in the beginning, we're moving. So it is taking a little bit of toll on it, so to speak. All right, so in my crock pot, just so I have some even consistency, we're going to not put the meat in quite yet. Find a towel, because this pan is scalding hot. We're going to pour a little bit of beef broth in there, or broth in there. Actually, we're going to pour the whole thing in there, because I got to put the cornstarch in also. And we want to make sure we get everything out of the pan. But, and when you're getting all those bits off the bottom, using this technique, it's called deglazing. And we're deglazing the pan by adding the broth in there, by adding the liquid in there. A lot of times they do it with, if they don't do it with broth, they do it with wine. But see how there's not really anything left stuck to the bottom of that pan? And let's say real quick we wanted to get that off the bottom of the pan. What could we do to get that out of the pan and into the crock pot? Take a wooden spatula and just run it across. Once again, I'm not using metal because I don't want to take off that layer of carbon buildup. For those of you that don't know, with cast iron pans, what causes them to turn black like that is essentially just carbon buildup. It's molecularly bonding with the steel, and that's what helps you with your well, they call it a non-stick surface, but I'm here to tell you, even your non-stick pans can stick. Yeah, and a lot of times when things stick, it's because you're moving it too soon. Like those steaks, if I would have sat them down there and pulled them right up, they would have stuck. All right, so we got this in the crock pot. Give it a good stir around. Now I'm going to add in my cornstarch. I didn't want it to start thickening on me in the pan, and it would have. Cornstarch actually, it'll thicken pretty quickly, and this is going to sit in this crock pot for 8 hours. If you didn't want to put your cornstarch in right away, you don't have to. We could have added this in near the end, kind of like we did with the beef and broccoli recipe we did last week, and that would have been okay too to make the gravy with. But I'm putting it in now because that's what the directions say to do. And then we're going to put our meat in here. Get our meat in there. The reason why I started to put the meat in first, or at least some of the meat in first, but I opted not to do that last second, obviously, because I didn't want the meat to stick to the bottom of the, potentially stick to the bottom of the crock. And I didn't want to, I wanted to make sure we got some of that gravy in underneath it, and I wanted to make sure that I got this cornstarch put in really well. So we'll just work the steaks down into the gravy. Not a big deal. We're going to have a lid on this the entire time. And we'll talk about that here in just 1 second. We get the rest of the steaks in here. All right, 12 steaks completely covered in our gravy mix, which is what we're looking for. Maybe. There we go. All right. Now, the beauty of crock pot cooking is, like, it looks like there's not a lot of, and here's kind of where the variance would be between this and a skillet. With this, we're not going to lose any of those juices, none of the flavors, right? Because it's not going to go anywhere. The minute you take your lid off your frying pan, doing it the other way, is as soon as you lift that lid, you lose all that moisture, and it'll thicken up, really thicken up. But here's what we're looking like inside the crock pot. I think it looks amazing myself. So much like every other tool I own, I don't plug my crock pot in until the last minute. If you're new, that's because I got little hands running around, so I don't plug in any piece of equipment that could potentially be turned on and hurt the little hands, or make a mess, or hurt me or Chris or anybody else. So I am going to cook this, turn this to low, and I'm going to let it cook on low. The reason for that is because I'm going to be busy moving things all day, so I want that to cook low and slow. So that is our cube steaks. That is how we're making our cube steaks. Now, you have a couple options here with your cube steaks, depending on your day. What do you got planned? Because this is a great meal to cook, when you've got other things to do throughout the day. Because it takes a minute. It doesn't take long to prep. That literally took us, if you were only doing 4 steaks like it calls for, it takes like 2 minutes to get them together and fry them up. You may have 15-20 minutes in prep time. And then another, if you're doing it just leave it in the pan, this meal probably won't take you more than a half hour. Doing it in the slow cooker, we got about 15-20 minutes in prep. And then we've got, depending on how you cook this, 4 to 8 hours. So if you're cooking this on high, which you can cook this in your slow cooker on high, 3 to 4 hours. You're looking for an internal temperature of 165 degrees. Okay? So if you have a meat thermometer and you can test that, your meat should read about 165 degrees. If you want it to cook forever, or cook all day because you got plans like we do, 7 to 8 hours on low. All right, which is where we're headed. So I'm going to let this cook 7 to 8 hours on low, and then when I come back, we'll take a look at it and give it a taste. All right, I'll see you in just a second. Okay, guys, so it's been about 7 hours. Got a whole lot accomplished. We moved a ton of stuff over to the garage of our new house today. A bunch of stuff we don't use, just sitting around. And, you know, we've been storing. Got all my canned goods brought up. And quick funny story. We were watching Rose Red Homestead, who's a canner also. I talked about in yesterday's video, that and she had mentioned that she had like 500 cans in her pantry of stuff she'd canned up. And I thought for a brief second, wow, that's a lot. Kind of moved on about my day. Well, then as I'm pulling all our canned goods up, stuff that we've canned and processed, put into jars, we have close to 400 ourselves. So I guess that's not that far out of the realm. But anyhow, so we let it cook for about 7 hours, you know, while we got a bunch of stuff moved. And if I can get us going there. And there's how we turned out right there. Now, one thing I did do differently than the recipe, and I did it while you guys weren't looking, sorry, but I added mushrooms. So I really thought mushrooms would be a nice addition to this. And we can our own mushrooms, so I had some available. So why not throw them in? I thought that would add a nice little something to it. So I put a can of mushrooms in it. I can tell you that the sauce tastes really good. I tasted it for salt. It didn't need any. It's spot on. But that being said, let me get one of these on a plate and we'll take a bite and see how it turned out. It's been, sorry, let me get that light. I'm gonna get this light turned off for you. There we go. That way we can see a little better. This kitchen is just oddly lit for actually working. It's not bad for filming, obviously. You can see me just fine. I can see you great. So I know it works well for that, but not so much for filming. So, and like I said, the sauce turned out lovely. One thing I would probably do the next time, I didn't double the sauce recipe, and it only because it seems like every time I double a recipe like this with the sauce portion, it turns out to be a lot, almost too much. So I didn't double it, but I think when we go to make this again, depending on how it tastes, which I'm pretty sure it's going to taste great, but I will do 1.5 times the sauce amount, because we're always going to do like at least 12 cube steaks. We always make extra. That way we either have leftovers the next day, but there are 4 of us eating, and these aren't exactly huge, and at least I'm a fairly good eater, so I know I can eat at least 2 or 3 of these, but leftovers are always a plus. So, that being said, let's get down to the important part at any rate. I said, you have to excuse me, I'm a little on the whoop side. We did a lot today. But right there is our Salisbury steak in all its fame and glory. Let me bring it down real quick so you can get a top view. There we are right there. That's how we look. You know, and I mean, as far as adding things to it, you could add almost any vegetable to this. I mean, you know, the onion is almost a given in the cube steak world. But mushrooms are also acceptable. You could throw peppers in there, you know, sweet peppers, or even a hot pepper. You know, you want to make it, you know, right for you and yours, hands down. All right, let's see if it turned out. I can tell you, it's fairly tender. It's falling apart on the fork. That's pretty good. It tastes just like cube steak that I remember. My mom used to make this all the time when I was a kid. But I can't tell you the last time that me and Chris made cube steak. For all the things we try that are different. Yeah, I like that. I mean, really, other than doubling the sauce, that way I have enough to smother all over mashed potatoes, because we're going to plate this with mashed potatoes and corn. A traditional all-American TV dinner, so to speak, but with cube steak instead of Salisbury steak. But no, that's good. I'm not hating on that at all. A lot of times, cube steak can turn out tough, you know, and not very moist at all. But I think, sorry, I had to have another bite. It's really good. I mean, I am surprised, but I am surprised because it's a new recipe. I've never tried this before, so I had no idea how it was going to turn out. With the mix that we rubbed, you know, the rub we put on it when we fried it, I didn't know how the brown sugar was going to play with the garlic and the onion and, you know, all that. That's yeah. But that meat is tender. I mean, super tender. Now, I will say, I don't know if it would become that tender making it in the skillet, which was the other option we had. I don't know if it would have became that tender, but 7 hours in a crock pot, that meat's tender. It's not falling apart. I mean, you're able to pick it up to get it out of the crock pot, but the chew on it is phenomenal. So, that being said, we're going to keep this in the book. I don't think we're tearing it out. I like it. Like I said, most I would do is, yeah, and I would recommend if you're going to do more than, well, if you're going to do more than 8, I'd recommend doing the gravy at 1.5 times the recipe that I gave you. You know, so if it says add a cup of something, add a cup and a half. At least the broth. You know, the beef, the chicken broth. That's all I would change as far as that goes. And, you know, green peppers wouldn't be bad in this either. A green or a red pepper in this would be pretty awesome too. Those are just some thoughts. You know, but take this recipe and make it your own, because I know I'm going to make it my own. I'm going to add a red pepper to it, and I'm going to double the, I'm going to add a half a cup of each broth to the recipe notes. So, that being said, give it a shot. Tell me if you like it. Tell me if you don't like it. It's a quick, easy thing to put together. I mean, really it is. You know, and it's something that cooks all day, and you don't have to worry about it. It's ready for you when you get home from work. Let me know if you do try it. You know, be like, Brian, this is pretty good. I agree. I liked it. You know, or I add this to it because I make this already. I add this to it, or I do that to it. You know, let's start a conversation about it. If you don't like this recipe, let me know. Be like, Brian, it was not nice. You know, you did me dirty. You know, or whatever. I would like to know why you didn't like it, because like I said, I think it tastes good. So, that being said, I'm going to go eat dinner with Chris and Abby. Sarah's at a ball game. And one of her friends has a volleyball, I think. I don't know, she said something about a game. But anyhow, I want to go have dinner with the family. Some good conversation. Lots to talk about. Lots to plan. Moving is no joke. I will try to post some videos over the next week, but I can't guarantee there'll be dinner and baking, you know, for that matter. But a good conversation. You guys will get to see our new house befores, and, you know, we'll tour it before we bring everything in, and all that good stuff. But other than that, I love you. I love you very much. Tell somebody else you love them and you love them very much. It's going to make their day a whole lot better, and it'll make you feel better. I know it makes me feel better to tell you guys. So, till next week when we find some more shenanigans to get into. Or actually, no, tomorrow. Pumpkin cheesecake. Can't wait to show you this. You're going to love it. All right. I'll see you tomorrow for pumpkin cheesecake. And then if I don't see you tomorrow, I'll see you when I see you. All right. Talk to you later. I love you guys. Bye.